Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the Nerd in the Street, and today I'm showing you how I implemented the Vimeo API in my Composr-powered website. Alright everyone, it is nearing the end of September here, and I have been super busy the past couple of months. If you're a regular viewer on the channel, keep an eye out for a network update coming soon because I've got some things to talk about, but I wanted to try and get a video out this month, and earlier this week, something happened that kind of forced my hand about what that video is going to be about, which is actually a good thing. If you're not a regular viewer of this channel, then this video might not make a lot of sense, but let me try to explain what's going on here anyway. I have a website at nerdonthestreet.com, and on that website, I've got all of my videos that I've made for Nerd on the Street. Now on YouTube, some of my videos are on this technology channel, some of my videos are on a separate creative channel, and I've got a gaming channel on top of that. I also have a single Dailymotion channel where I upload most of the same videos, but not all of my videos are on Dailymotion in YouTube. Some of them are exclusively for my Patreon supporters, who I call the Nerd Club, and so those exclusive videos plus all of my public videos, they're all at nerdonthestreet.com, and you can browse them all there. Now over the years, I have made hundreds of videos. As of right now, there are over 900 videos on the nerdonthestreet.com website. Many hours of quality content. And I don't have the storage space on my own server to host all of those videos in all of the different resolutions that you might want to watch them in. I also don't have a global content delivery network for my website. My website's hosted on a pretty simple Linux server, and it's a cloud-hosted server, so it's got good uptime and everything, but it might not be the best for streaming video from if you happen to be in a geographic location that's very far away from that server. So for the video content at nerdonthestreet.com, I use my own custom video player based on Video.js, but for the actual hosting of the video files themselves, I use Vimeo. I subscribed to Vimeo Pro a few years ago, and I spent a couple months uploading all of my backlog of content at the time to Vimeo. And with the Vimeo Pro membership, I am limited to uploading 20 gigabytes per week, so that has hampered me a couple of times since I got caught up with my backlog of content, but for the most part, Vimeo does everything that I need it to. It hosts my videos, and it transcodes the videos into lower resolutions, and it provides an HLS link for auto quality viewing. And like I said, I don't actually embed the Vimeo player on my website. For the front end, I use something based on Video.js. That way, Vimeo is not getting any statistics from you. You know, the Vimeo embed player, by default, it uses Google Analytics. I don't want my website's viewers having anything sent to Google Analytics when they visit, which is one of the reasons I use Video.js. Another reason being that it creates a more cohesive feel for the website. Now, in addition to video hosting, I also use Vimeo for the thumbnail hosting for the videos in particular. Now, there is some content at nerdonthestreet.com that is not video content, and most of those are audio podcasts. And for the podcasts, I host the thumbnails on the nerdonthestreet.com web server. So you're loading the PNG image from my web server, and it's just a simple image embed. However, for all of my videos, the videos also have thumbnails, and since Vimeo hosts the thumbnails anyway, I typically pull the thumbnails from Vimeo when I'm embedding them on my website. So if you inspect Element on one of the thumbnails, you'll see that it's a vimeo.com domain. Some of my older videos from before I migrated to Vimeo are still using YouTube or Dailymotion for their thumbnail embeds, even though the videos themselves are being hosted on Vimeo now. I just didn't bother to update the thumbnail embeds. So earlier this week, I went to my website. I don't remember why. I might have just been checking to see if there were any new forum posts, and I noticed very quickly that all of the thumbnails on the front page were missing. And I clicked on one of the videos and it still played, so the video itself was fine, but that really hampered the entire look of the website because I really put a lot of work into making my website visually oriented. When you're looking for a video, you're basically scrolling through all of the thumbnails and finding what you want. So I figured out pretty quickly that Vimeo had changed the URL scheme to access the thumbnails from their platform. The URLs all changed. And it's interesting because they didn't change significantly. The URL is almost the same. It's just got a very long string. It looks like some kind of hash inserted in the middle. Now, this is not the first time that Vimeo has made an update recently that has broken my workflow, but it is the first time they've made an update that's actually broken the existing content on the website. Vimeo continues to try and modernize themselves like most websites, and they remove features and they make things harder to access under the guise of making things things simpler. And every time Vimeo implements one of these changes, since I am a paying customer, I usually open a support ticket asking why they made the change, asking why I wasn't notified before they made the change, and then asking any questions about future changes that might be related that I need to know about. So I contacted Vimeo about this one since they actually broke things that were embedded on my website. And kind of as I suspected, they said, yeah, we updated the URL scheme. They said it was for security. And they said that they tried to do it in a non-breaking way, but that they basically couldn't or just didn't. I don't really understand why they couldn't have just set up redirects for their old thumbnails. I guess they do have probably hundreds of thousands of thumbnails that they're hosting, so maybe it was just beyond what they wanted to do. But part of this was on me. This breakage was partially caused by the fact that whenever I uploaded a video before, this is how the upload process typically goes for me. And if you were just here for the on-screen content, this is normal Nerd on the Street. I'm going to talk about all of the context behind what I'm doing here. So when I go to upload a tech video, such as this one, I upload it to 3 different websites at the same time: YouTube, Dailymotion, and Vimeo. I make a thumbnail and I upload it to all 3. I write the description, copy it between all 3. I write the tags on YouTube, copy them to Dailymotion. While I'm copying them to Dailymotion, I think of a few more, and then I add those back over on YouTube. I don't bother tagging any of my stuff too much on Vimeo because none of my videos are available to view on Vimeo. I'm just using Vimeo as a CDN for my website. YouTube and Dailymotion both provide ad revenue. Vimeo doesn't have that feature. So if you want to watch Nerd on the Street content without any ads and without using an ad blocker, you can join the Nerd Club. Or you can just use an ad blocker if you don't want to join the Nerd Club. But what I do is I upload to those 3 websites and then I publish on YouTube when it says that monetization is ready. I publish on Dailymotion basically immediately because it gives me the least trouble out of any of these websites. And after Vimeo has finished transcoding to all of the different resolutions, up until this weekend, what I used to do for every single video was I copied a block of HTML, and that HTML was a Video.js player embed. I copied that embed into a post on my website. I manually copied the different video URLs for the different quality levels that I'm adding as sources in the video player. And then on the Vimeo website, in the management interface, I literally just right-click on the thumbnail, I click Inspect Element, and I copy the link to the thumbnail, and I paste it into 2 different places on the website. I paste it into the Video.js player as the poster image for the video, so while it's loading and you get the loading spinner, you see the thumbnail in the background. And then I also paste it into a field in the post that I'm making on the website that the website reads from and uses as the thumbnail in the browsing and searching areas of the site. So technically, this was kind of partially on me for using Vimeo's website in a way that they didn't really intend. Vimeo provides those video download links, and they provide those links and they say those links will not change. Vimeo technically never made any guarantee that the thumbnail links would not change. They never said that. That's not an advertised feature. However, I kind of assumed it would be the case. Like I said, I've got about 900 videos on the website, little over 900. About 400 of those were using Vimeo for their thumbnails. The other 500, even though the videos were on Vimeo, like I said, the thumbnails were still being loaded from either YouTube or Dailymotion, and the Dailymotion thumbnails actually also recently broke. So it's probably a good thing that this happened, because I'm revisiting all of it now. But the YouTube thumbnails, this is the website that does not charge anything and is run by Google, who has no problem breaking or removing features that they don't like anymore. The YouTube thumbnails are all still perfectly working. The YouTube thumbnails have not changed in their format. I don't think that they've changed or broken those links in the almost 10 years that I've been doing Nerd on the Street. 9.5 years now, nearly 9.5 years, and YouTube has managed to not change those links. And Vimeo, for some reason, needed to change them. Now, the solution to this, the solution that I knew that Vimeo's support would point me to, and that honestly I knew I would have to do for a long time, is to not hard code all of this external stuff into my website. I've known from the beginning that it was kind of a hack, and it's always been one of those things where, I'll get to it later, I'll revisit it eventually, I'll make this work in a better way in the future, but for right now, I don't have time to do all this web development, so I'm just gonna hard code stuff. They're image links. It's not like I'm doing a bunch of weird stuff. These are image links for a website that I'm paying to host my content. So I had a reasonable expectation that those links would continue working as long as I continued paying. But yeah, it didn't work. The thumbnails all broke. So the proper way to do this is to instead of hard coding an entire video player embed and the thumbnail image in every single one of those posts on my website, the proper way to do it is to just have a single field in the website that accepts a very short number, and that's the Vimeo ID of the video. And then to have the website on the back end go and fetch the video links and the thumbnail from Vimeo's website when a viewer goes to view that video. My only concern about this would be rate limiting with their API, because it's very easy to go and hit dozens of thumbnails at the same time through my website. But Vimeo support said this is how you're supposed to do it. So this weekend, today on a Saturday, I sat down and I made this pretty big architectural change to how the website is going to work when I go to add new videos. Now, my website, for those of you who don't know, it's based on a content management system called Composr. I've made a couple videos about it before. I've even done some videos with the lead developer of Composr in the past. And it's a great content management system. It is only limited by how much time you have to sit down and tweak things, basically. And so I knew this would be possible to do. It did involve a little bit of PHP programming, and I'm about to actually run the SQL command right now that's going to fix all of these thumbnails. So with that 15-minute explanation out of the way on why my website broke this weekend, and by the way, if you caught this past week, this happened on Tuesday. Like I said, I've been super busy. I'm working full-time, I'm going to school full-time, and dealing with some other stuff on top of that. So I just did not have the time to fix this during the week, so I just threw up a message at the top of the website that said, "A recent Vimeo API change has broken thumbnail display. Jacob will fix it soon." And honestly, I considered putting this off until like next month. But today I had some extra time, and so I wanted to just knock it out, get it out of the way. I thought about doing this as a live stream because that probably would have brought in some people just saying hello. Part of the reason I'm putting this video out is just to say hello, because it's been a little while since I made a video, and the next one's still gonna be a few weeks away. But the downside to doing a live stream is, one, I have to sit in the computer chair continuously in front of the camera. I can't get up and walk around if I need to clear my head. And two, I do have people coming into the chat room and usually asking unrelated questions, which is totally fine, but it obviously distracts me from what I'm doing with the programming. So I decided not to do a live stream, but I am going to show you right now on video how I implemented this in my website, just for those of you who are interested in how the website works, and just to demonstrate that I do actively maintain the website. You might have the impression that you can just make a website and just walk away from it and leave it there forever and it will continue working, but that's generally not how things work. Whether it's software updates on your server or if it's external API updates like this one, you are going to have to go sometimes and fix things that break due to external factors. And it is something that I still do in the background usually, even when I'm not making a bunch of public-facing videos about it. So that intro is long enough. Let's cut to the desktop and let me show you what I changed on the website this weekend. All right, guys, and here we are on the desktop. So this is my website right now. This is what it looks like if you're signed in. The welcome back section only shows for people who are logged in. But as you can see down here under latest tech videos, the first two videos have working thumbnails. That's because these have been converted. They are now using the Vimeo API to fetch these thumbnails. The second two videos, the thumbnails are broken. This is what Vimeo sends back if you try to access an image that does not exist on their assets website. Scrolling down a bit farther here, you can see under the creative section, 5 out of the 6 videos are using broken thumbnail links. If we right click on any of these and open image in new tab, you can see i.vimeocdn.com. This is just a JPEG file in this case, pointing to an image that no longer exists. Now, one of these is working, and that's because this thumbnail right here, this one is still using the YouTube thumbnail because that was a public video that I posted to YouTube, and that might have been before I started uploading videos to Vimeo, or at least before I was completely caught up. That is quite an old video from December of 2017. That would have been about the time that I was still uploading content to Vimeo. Down here under miscellaneous videos, you can see 6 more broken images. 2 of these are working, and those are podcast episodes because, like I said, the podcast thumbnails are hosted on my web server at podcast.nerdonthestreet.com. So this is what my website has looked like for almost a week now, not quite a week. If we click Browse All Content, we can just go back and we can see pages and pages and pages of just broken images. So clearly, this doesn't look too great. Like I said, if we go back to the oldest stuff, these are all using YouTube embeds. And if we right click on one of those, YouTube's max res default URLs still have not changed. Somewhere in the middle here, we've probably got a lot of Dailymotion images, so those are broken as well, as you can see. If we click on one of these, the video does work.
Hey, what's up, guys?
If we right click and inspect element here, we can see even though the formatting looks a little bit different on this page with the video below the title, we are loading this video from Vimeo. It's just that the thumbnail is being loaded, the poster image from the Dailymotion CDN, which once again is no longer working either. So we're going to come back to the home page here, and we're going to talk about how I have accomplished this, getting some of these thumbnails working again. So if we take a look at what one of these older posts looked like, let's take a look at my PopOS video from a few months back.
I'm Jacob Kauf, and I'm the
We'll click on edit, and this is what things look like on the back end when I upload videos to nerdonthestreet.com, or this is what they used to look like up until this weekend. As you can see, I put the title in, I select a category, and then I've got a video.js section. This section right here is where I embedded the video player. As you can see, it's inside of HTML tags. These are Comcode tags. Comcode is a language for the front end of Composr CMS. So I use HTML to tell Composr that I'm about to put in HTML code, and then I just put my video.js embed right here. As you can see, I hard code all of the different URLs to all of the different sources, and I also hard code in the poster image, which is no longer working. So this poster image is what shows on the video player when it's loading the video, when it's downloading from one of these sources. If we scroll down a bit, we've got the description hard coded here. That will remain hard coded for the time being. And then down here under representative image, this is where I input the URL that Composr uses in browsing and search results. So these are two different places that this link was being used. And it's about 400 videos that have broken. So I would have to go and update about 800 different fields if I wanted to fix this problem manually and continue hard coding these images. And I could have scripted an update to the database. I considered doing that instead of the whole API thing. But instead, let's talk about this solution I've come up with for the API. So if we take a look at my latest video, which is this WireGuard video, as you can see, I have this field here called Vimeo ID. This was not filled in on that previous video. It is filled in on this one. And this is a new field that I just added today. Now, Composr is a great content management system. I love how flexible Composr is because originally the news feature in Composr, it was mainly for blog posts. You can see it has this default news articles section, and that's what I'm using for the description right now. But I actually added a few years ago this custom video.js field to put this code into. And it was just a single click to do that a few years ago. And today it was just a single click to add this new Vimeo ID field. So let's take a look at that to start with. If we go into Composr, we go to the content section and we select our news area, we can choose custom news article fields. This basically lets you interact with the news system as if it's any other catalog system in Composr. And Composr lets you make catalogs from scratch as well. I'm just using the news system as a basis for my videos because it was the easiest thing to do when I built this website. But as you can see, our custom video.js field here, I've given it a name, a description, and the type here is a paragraph of COM code with attachment support. Aside from the attachment support, this is basically a long text field. Down here under Vimeo ID, you can see this one is a brief line of text with no COM code support, and this is basically a short text field. Now, the Vimeo ID is always going to be numeric. There are no integer data types available in this section of Composr. If I search for number here, the only option we have aside from a telephone number would be a code name, which can be letters and numbers. But even though this Vimeo ID is always going to be numeric, we don't really want to store it as a number anyway. We want to store it as a string because we're going to be interacting with it as a string. We're going to be concatenating it onto a URL, and we're never going to be doing any sort of calculations with our Vimeo ID. You basically only want to store numbers as integers if you're going to be using them mathematically. We're never going to do that here. We're going to use this ID as a string, so we're going to store it as a string, a brief line of text. So that's how easy it was. I just came in here, I dropped down one of these new field sections, I selected what I wanted, and I clicked save, and that added this new field in the database called Vimeo ID. Now, it's not actually a field in the same table as the rest of this. It's actually its own table that is linked back to the main news table via a foreign key. And the reason it does that, theoretically, is so you don't have a bunch of null entries for this new field. It's generally good database design to minimize the amount of null items you have. So if we're adding a new field, a lot of these news articles might not even have Vimeo IDs, such as the podcasts, so there's no reason to assign them a Vimeo ID field in the table. Now, in this case, I actually messed up when I went to add this. You can see if we drop down one of these new field items, there are some options here for if this is a required field, if it's searchable, and I left some of these checked, and that actually went and created default entries in the new table for all of the existing news articles, which is actually totally fine. It's going to make my job easier here when I go to update all of these Vimeo IDs automatically in just a moment. But if we take a look here, let's go back to one of the broken videos, so the Cosmic one. If we take a look inside of the Cosmic video, you can see there is no Vimeo ID set. So this old video is using this static embed. The new video is actually not even using this embed anymore. I can come in here and delete this entire thing, and I can come down here and click save, and the video is still going to play, which is pretty cool. I no longer need that static embedded video player anymore, and I also don't even need the image anymore. If I come back down and I delete this image, I'm gonna save that without the image. As you can see, the image still displays on the video player. If I refresh the home page, the image still displays on the home page as well. So all that Composr needs is that single Vimeo ID, which is very easy for me to get. Now, if you're wondering what this looks like over on the Vimeo website, this is what it looks like. This is the technology folder, so these are my tech videos that I'm looking at right now. So here we have the WireGuard video. Now, in order to get the ID, it's right here up in the URL. The ID is right there. It's super easy to copy and paste into Composr. If I go and click Advanced here, this is what I normally work with. This used to just be the regular old interface on Vimeo's website, but now I have to click Advanced every single time I go into any video because Vimeo insists on making their website worse continually. But here in the Advanced view, right up here in the URL, once again, we've got our video ID. This is where I upload the thumbnail, and I set the default thumbnail to the one that I uploaded. The description and the title I just keep in here for ease of use in the Vimeo interface. So previously, what I would do is right-click this thumbnail, and I would come down here, and I would copy this link here. Now, this link, this is the long version that they just added. So it used to look something like this. And they just added this huge string in the middle. Like I said, it looks like some kind of hash to me. I'm not sure exactly what it is. But that's where I got the thumbnail URL from before, and then I would go down to distribution, scroll down to the bottom, and then I have links to play the video. We've got one HLS link, which I use for the auto quality, and then one MP4 link for each quality that Vimeo transcodes. And an MPD link. That's new. I've never seen that before. That must have actually just been added in the past few days. So in the past, I had to copy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the image URL. That's 6 things I had to copy out of Vimeo. Now I only need to copy 1, which is this video ID right here. So that's great. That is going to make uploading videos faster. Now, how does this work on the back end? How come I can have some videos using the static embed and some videos using the video ID? Well, let's take a look here at our templates. I did a video a few years ago where I started talking about Composr, and I'm pretty sure that what I was talking about was the templating system. If I search for Composr, yeah, I've got a video called Composr CMS Part 1 Templating. And in this video, I talked a lot about the templating system. This was made in 2017, October 2017, almost 4 years ago. But really, the concepts have stayed largely the same. I've just started using them a lot more. So I've got 2 templates open right now. I've got News Entry Screen and News Box here. Now, these 2 templates provide 2 different things. The News Entry Screen provides the actual video page where you're watching the video. News Box is a template that's used in browsing and searching. Anytime you see the thumbnail but not the video itself, you're seeing News Box. And Composr makes it really easy to see, at least for me when I'm logged in, which templates are in use at any given time. If we come down here to our page rendering tools, I can select template names as HTML. It's just barely on the bottom of the video there, almost cut off. But if I click go on that, that's going to open up a version of this page that I can right click on and inspect. And if we inspect that, we've got a comment in our HTML here that says start template news box. And that's how I know that this HTML came from the news box template. That's how I knew to go into the Composr backend and find the news box template to edit what I'm seeing here on the front page. So in order to get the thumbnail based on the Vimeo ID of this video, when you're on the front page of the website, I needed this page to be able to pull that Vimeo ID from the database for each video that it's displaying, and then also to be able to go and reach out to the Vimeo API and get the appropriate image and then embed that image. Now, if we come over to the Newsbox template, let's see how I did this here. If we scroll down to the bottom, this is where the thumbnail is. Now, this is a very long line. One bad thing about temp code is that white space does matter. Because it's a templating system. As you can see, indentation is here for your HTML. And if you have a line break in the middle of a line, it will mess up, or it will insert a line break in your HTML. Now, HTML can sometimes handle that, but inside of a source field, it's best not to have line breaks. So this is the source parameter inside of the image that we're embedding. This is the browse thumb image class. And when we go to get the source, this is a very messy line. Once again, it took me a long time to get this actually working properly. And then I condensed it down onto a single line to make the code as efficient and non-repetitive as possible. So what this is going to do is it's going to say if our catalog entry field value for this current news ID, which in the case of our WireGuard video, if we go and we click edit again, just like in the Vimeo website, we were able to get the Vimeo ID from their URL. Here at the Nerd on the Street website, I can get my own video ID for this video from the URL. So this is video number 930. So it says, look up the catalog entry for news post number 930, and then find field number 1. Now, field 0 in the catalog is the first custom field, which is going to be the video.js embed. And then field number 1 is going to be the second custom field, which is the Vimeo ID. So if the Vimeo ID is non-empty, then we need to go into here. I need to say don't pre-process this. This is sort of an optimization thing that Composr does. It tries to pre-process your temp code so that it doesn't have to run through all of the logic for every single item on the page. It tries to take a shortcut basically, and that was actually messing this up for a while, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong until I realized I was doing nothing wrong, but I figured out that the pre-processing was what was making it not work. So inside of these tags, we're going to not pre-process any of the temp code. Inside of here, we're calling a block, and that block is called Vimeo thumbnail. This is a custom block that I wrote myself. It's actually a mini block. Now, I knew I would be able to do what I needed to do in terms of calling the Vimeo API in PHP, but I was a little worried about getting it integrated into Composr. But Composr has a feature called mini blocks that I'll talk about in just a second that actually made it super easy to do. So when it's calling that block, it's going to pass in a parameter video ID, and that parameter is going to be the same thing we checked before, catalog field number 1 for the current news ID. And that block is going to return the link to the image. The block, the mini block that I wrote in PHP is what's actually calling the Vimeo API. So in the temp code here, as far as Composr is concerned, it's just calling a block, it's getting some text back, it's inserting that link, that text right here into this template, into the source field. And then I'm saying, okay, you can start pre-processing again. There's the end of the if statement. Now I'm saying, okay, if the Vimeo ID is empty, before we were saying if the Vimeo ID was not empty, then we're going to use the Vimeo ID to find the thumbnail. However, if the Vimeo ID is empty, then we're going to go in and we're just going to get the image. So Composr gives you a certain number. If we go down here under our parameters, all of the built-in news parameters it exposes for you so that you don't have to say, oh, I want catalog entry number, whatever. You know, for the image, you just put image. For the title, you can just put news title. So the second if statement's actually shorter. If we don't have a Vimeo ID, just display the image. Before, the only thing on this line was image. Everything else inside of this source parameter was gone. It was just image before. But now we're saying, okay, if we don't have a Vimeo ID, we're still going to use that image. That's going to be a sort of fallback. That way I can still set my images locally for things like those podcast episodes. And that's the end of that second if statement. So it's not actually that complicated. It just looks terrible. Once again, I wish that I could break this up into multiple lines, but it was actually inserting line breaks in the HTML inside of the source field, which wasn't actually breaking the image display, but it did not look very good when I was doing inspect element on it. So I put it all on a single line, and we've got the end of our image tag over here. You can see the alt text is being set again dynamically to the title of the news article or the name of the video. So that's what it looks like in Composr. And then if we take a look on the Nerd on the Street web server, this is an SFTP connection to my web server. And inside of our HTML directory, Composr makes it really easy to both override built-in code and to add your own additional code. There's a sources folder here, and this is all built-in Composr code. But if you want to override any of these files, you can just copy the file over into sources_custom, change the file, and then if the file exists in sources custom, it will override whatever's in sources. So that's really handy for editing built-in things in Composr. In this case, Composr did nothing with the Vimeo API before, at least that I'm aware of. So I needed to do this from scratch. So in order to do that, like I said, there's this feature called mini blocks. Now, if we take a look at regular old blocks, let's take a look at, say, the main news block. So this is a template block that displays the news on the front page of the website. As you can see at the top, this is a PHP file. We've got a Composr copyright statement. You can see if you need to make changes, save your changed file to the appropriate custom folder. That way it doesn't get overwritten on updates. And at the beginning of a regular Composr block, we've got a bunch of stuff that is for internal Composr usage. We've got metadata. You can see we've got an info function that tells you things about who wrote this, what it does, what parameters it exposes. And honestly, if I wanted to be able able to use a short name here instead of all of this catalog stuff. That would be easier to do if I was doing this probably with a full regular block and making this a proper Composr plugin. However, this is a lot of stuff that I just didn't want to deal with. You know, all of this caching details and defining functions for Composr to use for the block. I didn't want to deal with all of that, and I didn't have to because Composr has this feature called mini blocks that I didn't know about really until today, even though I was actually using some mini blocks. These were authored in December of 2017. I'm fairly certain that these two first mini blocks, News Next and News Previous, I'm pretty sure that Chris Graham himself, the lead developer of Composr, wrote these mini blocks for me live on stream on a video that I was doing back then. Yeah, these blocks add next buttons for playlists on the website. But today I wrote my first two mini blocks from scratch myself, and they are these two Vimeo mini blocks down here. The first one is Vimeo thumbnail.php. Now I'm going to open this up, and part of this is going to be blocked out, but this is just a regular old PHP file. Once again, it starts with PHP, but you don't have to define any metadata. You don't have to tie this in with Composr. It's just a PHP file. And when you call this block from temp code, from any of your templates in your theme, it's really convenient because it's just going to call this PHP file, and whatever the PHP file prints or echoes, it's going to display in that template. So as you can see here, for Vimeo thumbnail.php, what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, here's a Vimeo token. I could probably set this up so that the Vimeo token is stored centrally in some other config file. Composr stores most of its configuration in the database, so it seemed a little bit more complicated than what I needed to do. So I just had the Vimeo token here in the PHP file for now. You cannot access this PHP file from a web browser. The htaccess is set up to not allow that. Even if you did access the PHP file in a web browser, you're just going to get the output of the PHP file. You're not going to be getting the actual code in the PHP file. So having the token in here is not a security risk whatsoever. Also, this token is actually a read-only token. If we come back over to the Vimeo website here, if we go to the My Apps section on the Vimeo developer website, you can see I did have to register an app here. And whenever I interact with Vimeo support, I refer to my website as my web application because Composr is a web application, and that makes it sound more official than, hey, I can't get this embed working on my website. But if we come here into the Nerd on the Street website app, if we scroll down a bit, you can see here we've got my personal access tokens, and I've generated a couple of these, and one of these is being used. I'm going to go ahead and delete the one that's not being used, just as a best practice there. But as you can see, this personal access token is a private personal access token, which lets me see the video URL and the thumbnail URL for videos that I have set to not display on Vimeo. It also has the video files permission, which lets me see those download URLs explicitly. If we come up here, you've got lots of different permissions that you can set. Obviously, you only want to give a token the least amount of access possible. So this token that I've created, it doesn't have access to create, edit, or delete anything. It's just got access to read. So even if this was compromised, you're not really going to get anything that you're not already seeing on the website. If somebody who's not a Nerd Club member compromised it, they would be able to get access possibly to Nerd Club exclusive videos. But once again, this token is completely secure, so there's really no risk there. Now, I'm just using the get file contents built-in PHP function to fetch from api.vimeo.com some JSON information about this particular video. So once again, I said earlier, I'm concatenating that Vimeo ID onto this URL. I'm treating that Vimeo ID as a string. Once again, this Vimeo ID is being passed in here because back here in the template, I specified Vimeo ID equals, and then I put that in there. I kept Vimeo ID with the same capitalization everywhere just so that it's easy for me to recognize, but that Vimeo ID would not be exposed to PHP unless you pass it in when you're calling this block in the template. So back here in our PHP file, I'm also passing in a context here. That context is providing this Vimeo options array, and that array is providing my Vimeo token here in an authorization bearer header. In the HTTP GET request, it's also specifying explicitly that we are using a GET request in particular. So I'm calling that get file contents function, and I'm calling that inside of a JSON decode function. So that's going to decode that response from text into a JSON array inside of PHP that I can then work with. It's saving that into a variable called Vimeo_JSON, and then down here, I'm echoing out the last item of the array, the pictures object, and then the sizes object inside of that. I'm getting the last size because they're sorted from smallest to largest, And then inside of that last size, I'm getting the link to that largest size of thumbnail. I'm echoing that back out. That's the only thing I'm echoing is the link itself, and that gets inserted into the HTML as the source for this image. So that's how the thumbnail is working on the browse and search pages. If we come back over to news entry screen, it's a very similar setup. It's broken out a little bit more, thankfully. As you can see, I say if a Vimeo ID is set, then we use the Vimeo API to display a Video.js player. So we're going to say if non-empty, that catalog field that we're storing the Vimeo ID inside of. If that's not empty, then we are going to stop pre-processing for a second, and we are going to display a block called Vimeo Video.js. So once again, in my mini blocks directory, I can open up Vimeo Video.js, and this one's a little bit larger. I'll make the window smaller. Kwrite is going to wrap my lines here. I'll just turn off word wrapping for this file. So once again, we're starting by defining our Vimeo token. We're doing the same thing. We're setting up our HTTP request to Vimeo's API. Then we're making that HTTP request, saving that JSON output to a variable called Vimeo_JSON. This time though, we're going to make a new variable called sources. That variable is going to be just the files section of that array. And the reason I'm breaking that out into its own variable is because I'm going to use the usort function on it, which is going to manipulate that variable. Now on the Nerd on the Street website, if we come back to one of the video view pages, here we are on a video page, and if I go to the quality selector at the bottom right of the player, as you can see at the top, we've got auto, which is the default. We've also got 1080, 720, 540, and 360p. Now keep in mind, in the past, I had to hard code every single one of these individually for every video. Now if I had a 4K video, then I also had to go in there and add 1440p and 2160p as additional options here. If I had a video that was only 720p, like some older live stream recordings, then I would omit the 1080p section. And that was all stuff I had to keep track of manually. So coming back here into our PHP file, what this usort function is doing is it's first saying, okay, if one of these items is not called HLS and the other one is called HLS, we're going to return one, which is going to sort the HLS item above the non-HLS item. We have to do the same thing in reverse just because of the way that the usort function works. We're saying if A is HLS and B is not HLS, there's a missing space here. I'm going to fix that right now. But in that case, we'll return -1 just to make sure that the non-HLS video gets moved underneath the HLS one. And finally, we are going to compare the height of the first and second item. Now the HLS item in that array, if we go to a prettified formatted version of this JSON response for one of these videos just to look at as an example, this is the pictures section. So once again, like I said, the largest thumbnail is going to be sorted last. That's why the thumbnail PHP file gets the last item in that sizes component. Now if I come down here to the files section, this is where all of the different qualities are listed. The reason I needed to sort this manually here in my PHP file, the reason I needed this entire function to sort this is because for whatever reason, the Vimeo API does not sort these properly when it sends them. I can't tell how it was sorting them. It had 540p first, then 1080p, which is the largest, then 720p, which is smaller, but still larger than 540. Then we've got 360, which is even smaller than the first one. Finally, we have HLS. Now, HLS does not have a height, so the auto quality does not have a height attribute at all. So if we come back over here to PHP, we are first going to deal with any cases where one of these is HLS. After that, we're going to compare two things that we know aren't HLS. Both of these have to have height parameters because anything that's not HLS has a height. And mark my words, that new MPD link that I had never seen before, I am sure that's going to show up in the Vimeo API at some point, and it's going to break this. And I'll have to add in some handling for that. But for right now, we know that anything that's not HLS has a height. So we're just going to sort the larger height above the smaller one. So that function is how we're accomplishing this sorting. The sorting used to be hard-coded. I used to just put them in the order that I wanted them to. Actually, it's not even hard-coded because Video.js actually sorts itself based on the resolution option that we pass in. But I wanted them to still be in order in the HTML for simplicity's sake, and so I wrote that sorting function. And when I say wrote, I mean cobbled it together based on Stack Exchange answers that I found while Googling things. So underneath that, we're going to start echoing things out. Once again, we are replacing all of that hard-coded video player. So we're going to start by echoing out the opening tag for Video.js. So this is Video.js. We're setting our ID that's going to be used for CSS formatting in our class. We want controls to display, preload auto. Autoplay is true because this is a video browsing website. Now down here toward the end of this Video.js line, we are once again getting the last item in the pictures component of that JSON, and we're looking inside of pictures for sizes, and we're getting the link of the last size. So we're using that also here to get the poster so that you see the correct thumbnail when you're waiting for the video to buffer after you click onto the page. Underneath that, we need to start listing out our sources. So to do that, I'm going to say for each source inside of the sources array, and once again, sources we have sorted into the correct order. So for each one in order, if the quality of the source is set to HLS, then we are going to say, okay, the name of the source is auto, and that is the physical label that you see when you're hovering over it. That's where this comes from, auto. We're going to specify the type of the source so the browser knows what codec it's using. And we're setting the resolution to 9999 so that Video.js sorts it at the top of the resolution list and uses it as the default. Underneath that, once again, we're processing these in order. So for the rest of them that aren't quality HLS, we are going to say the source name is the height of the source with P added at the end. So a 1920 by 1080 video is going to be labeled 1080p. The source type for the rest of them are MP4, and then we are setting the resolution to height. That's the same thing that I was using before in my hard-coded version. I was just using the height as the resolution, and Video.js uses that to sort and prioritize those resolutions. So it's printing those sources line by line for each source in order. First, it sets those parameters, and then it prints out a source line with all of that information filled in the correct place. After it's done with that, it just closes that Video.js tag. It inserts with a single echo statement all of the Video.js scripts that I use. And this is going to make things so much easier in the long run, really, because before, any time that I went and edited any of these scripts, if I wanted to change a script, I've actually got some of these that are more than one script. I have installed additional Video.js plugins and just appended them to unrelated scripts, because if I didn't do that, I would have to go and manually edit the hundreds of videos that all have these scripts in their hard-coded video embed code. But now, going forward, I'll just be able to update the scripts in this one PHP file, and it will immediately update all of the videos on the website. It won't actually update anything immediately because it's only processing this and generating it when you go to view the video, but that means it takes effect for all the videos at the same time. So it's going to be way more efficient, a way better system. Once again, I've known that I should do this for a very long time. My hand was just forced this week because of this breakage, but this is a good thing that I've gone and refactored all of this and made it way more efficient. So when we call this Vimeo Video.js block, this mini block or this PHP file, it's going to just return all of this text that I have echoed out. So if we come back to our news entry screen, once again, it's going to do that if a Vimeo ID is set. Now, if a Vimeo ID is not set, then it's just going to do the same thing it did before. It's going to say, if we don't have a Vimeo ID, if we do have a Video.js player embedded in there, hard-coded, we can fall back for now to the hard-coded embed player. Now, I'm going to leave this functionality in here, even though I'm not actually using it anywhere. I did go and check. The database does not have any embedded videos from YouTube or Dailymotion right now. They're all coming from Vimeo. But in the future, I might want to add a certain video from a different website. If I ever want to do that, this will let me easily do that because as long as I don't set a Vimeo ID, it will fall back to the hard-coded player. Now, if we don't have a hard-coded player at all, this is still inside of its own if statement because some content on the website does not have a player at all. For instance, Knott's podcast episodes. If we click on any one of these podcast episodes, as you can see, there is no video player above the title. It's just the description, which includes the audio embed. But we can still hard code video players if we want to, just in case we do want to go back and do that in the future. So all of this is set up in a way that I can just now go through and add for all of the videos that are currently broken, all of these videos without thumbnails, all I have to do is go through and manually, click on edit, and I have to go and copy the Vimeo ID, X out of Composer's pop-up asking if I want to restore autosave data, copy that Vimeo ID, paste it down in the Vimeo ID section. I can optionally delete the embedded video player. Don't have to, but I can. And then I click save, and the video still works. Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kauf and I'm the nerd of this. And then I go back and I refresh the front page and then that thumbnail goes and it shows up now. All I have to do is do that for all 900 videos. But obviously that would suck. I don't want to do that for 900 whole videos. That would take way, way, way too long. So we're actually going to go here. This is going to be kind of cool. I'm going to click Browse Content. I'm going to go to a page where all of them are broken. This is a bunch of broken images right now. Because in a terminal right here, this is why I decided to start recording. Once again, I thought about doing this on video, actually doing the development on video, but it's not fun to watch someone Googling and figuring things out. So I just did it myself, and now I'm showing you the finished product. But here, we are about to do something a little bit experimental. I am logged in right now to the nerdonthestreet.com web server. This is a MySQL or a MariaDB prompt. We do use MariaDB here at Nerd on the Street, but it uses MySQL syntax. So I've got a select statement right here because I was playing with regular expressions. MySQL and MariaDB have not always supported regular expressions directly in their statements, their queries, but the version that I'm using now does. The current versions do. And so this is going to select the content ID and the regular expression substring of this CMS catalog EFV long translated.cv value. I don't know where this name came from for that table. CMS catalog EFV long trans. If we come back and we look at phpMyAdmin, which I sometimes enable on my web server when I am doing database heavy things, this is how I discovered what the names of those tables were, because I didn't know Composr doesn't expose it in its GUI. But we can see here we've got a long translated table that has 818 entries. That would be the video.js content only. And we can see for each one of these, it says the ID of the news within Composr, the catalog entry ID, I presume that stands for. And then we've got the catalog value for this custom field, which for most of these, it's a video.js embed. Now you can see some of the earlier ones, I didn't put a line break after HTML when I was opening that video.js tab, and then currently I do, and some of the earlier ones I did. So that's a little inconsistent, but it's okay because the regular expression that I wrote can deal with that. Now, if we come back over here, we are going to select this regular expression that is going to it's going to find vimeo.com/external/, and then that's not part of what it's returning. It's just finding that first. And then it's going to return any number, one or more digits, so numerical digits, until it runs into a non-numerical digit from the CMS catalog EFV long translated table. I'm going to run that, and it returns all of these results. As you can see, it returned 818 rows. The highest ID is 813. The IDs are not necessarily in order, and some of these are blank. However, it does return the Vimeo IDs for all of my videos, which I think does everything that I need it to do. So I'm actually, you know what, before I do this, I've got a great idea. We're gonna come back over to phpMyAdmin, and we are going to export my database right now. You know, let's just export the entire thing. Composr, just in case this goes south, because I'm about to do an automated database update or a batch database update. Go. Let's see how big the nerdonthestreet.com database is. Attachments are generally stored on the file system, so this should all be text. Shouldn't be any big attachments being stored in the database. That was quite large. Yeah, taking a look in Dolphin, that is 120 megabytes. That is quite large, very large database. I've been using this website for years, and it really does work great. It's a very robust system with Composr. And it's great that it's built on these open technologies that I can interface with directly, like MySQL. So I've got the database downloaded, so I can upload it again if I need to restore it. I also do have daily backups of the nerdonthestreet.com web server. This is a cloud server, and I've got backups going for it automatically. So, you know, we've got ways to roll back if this goes south. However, here on video, live on video, I am going to paste in this statement that I wrote earlier today. And this is an update statement. Now, like I said, if we find our database structure here, so we've got the CMS catalog EFV long trans table here, and that is where our video.js hard-coded embeds live. Then we've got CMS catalog EFV short. That one has 818 items in it. And if we take a look in there and we sort by CV value, you can see we've just got the three items on the front page of the website. If we go back to nerdonthestreet.com, the two videos that I was testing with, plus the one underneath it that I just did in front of you, those are the only 3 videos on the entire website that have a Vimeo ID set, and you can see those right here. So I am going to attempt to pull in the IDs from the long trans table. If we come over here, all of these, it's going to go through, for each one, it's going to find the ID in the URL, and it's going to put it, hopefully, into the appropriate value in this other table. So let's take a look at my syntax here. I recently took a database class in college, so we'll see if anything stuck. So I'm saying update CMS catalog EFV short, so update our Vimeo ID table, set CMS catalog EFV short.cv value to the regular expression substring of CMS catalog EFV long translated CV value, and we're putting in our regex, where CMS catalog EFV short.cdid equals the regular expression substring Oh, this is actually wrong. It should just be CMS catalog EFV long trans.cdid. .ceid. I don't know what any of this stands for. I just know that this is what the tables are called. I'm glad I read that out loud so that I caught that mistake. But hopefully this will go through and, it's going to match ID in the one table to ID in the other table. And it's going to pull in the Vimeo ID into the appropriate field, which is this one, CV value. So we're going to paste that in here. All right, crossing my fingers. This might or might not work. Oh. Unknown column CMS catalog EFV short dot CDID in where clause. Okay, so it looks like we're using the wrong table name in our short column. Yeah, that should be CEID. Once again, not sure where that came from. That must have just been a typo, CEID. So they do match, and that's why I needed to specify the table name, because if we just told it to compare a field to itself, that would always be true. But it's comparing the field in one table to the field in the other table. So let's try that again. Okay, unknown column longtrans.ceid. Let me guess, did I just get them swapped? Bring this back over here. Our long translated table, oh, that's got CEID. Okay, so I think I need to join these tables together in order for it to compare like that. It's unknown in where clause. What if I just join this to CMS catalog EFV long trans.ceid? Copy, paste. Okay, I'm just making stupid mistakes at this point. Yeah, I'm joining tables together. There should not be a field name there. Okay, changed 801 rows. Okay, so if we come back over here, if we refresh the page in our short table, okay, we now have a bunch of Vimeo IDs. All right, so something happened. And now, if we go back to our Brave browser window here, moment of truth, let's cross our fingers, let's refresh and see if it actually got the correct Vimeo IDs. I'm gonna refresh this page, and we're waiting. Okay, I had to sit there and stare for a second to check if the thumbnails actually matched, but they do. So it looks like this is correct. Look at this, we've got MariaDB SQL over SSL TLS, and that's the correct thumbnail. We've got Extra Life 2020 Part 3. That's the correct thumbnail for that. If we go back to an older video, let's go back in our pages here, go to something maybe about halfway through, page 27 here. There is some delay here. I might have to see about optimizing those API calls. Vimeo suggested that I batch the API calls, but that was beyond what I was wanting to do this weekend. But here we have, okay, BinQ, monitor unboxing, that matches. We've got rolling release, Firefox, that matches. Let's see, let's go all the way back to page 1 to some of the early ones, because that's where a lot of the inconsistency probably happened. Okay, and back here, yeah, intro video, that's definitely the right one there. Some of these have definitely changed that I wasn't even necessarily intending to change, which is interesting. I might have to go back and copy some thumbnails from YouTube onto Vimeo for ones that I didn't do that before for. Because some of my earlier videos, I didn't used to upload. I like this. Why my video quality differs. I've just got myself pointing to a webcam on a GorillaPod on a CRT. What a great thumbnail that Vimeo generated there. A lot of these earlier videos I didn't actually make thumbnails for. For years, I actually said intentionally, I'm not making thumbnails, I didn't want to show people something different than what the video actually was, so I just used YouTube's own generated thumbnails, but then I didn't copy those generated thumbnails for most of these over to Vimeo when I was making that migration. I think I did for the very first one, just because that intro video thumbnail is such a great YouTube generated thumbnail. I had to make sure that one got saved, if nothing else. But yeah, look at that. And if we click on any one of these videos, let's try our Windows 7 demo here, years after Windows 7 was released. Hey. That's working, and we only have 360p available for that one because it was a really low quality video. Let's look up my 2015 first robotics competition video, and it's right here. We're going to click on that, and that one goes up to 4K.
Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kauf.
And actually, okay, so this one I used to label 2K and 4K videos because everybody knows generally that 1080p is HD, but not as many people know that 4K is 2160p. So let's go in here, just as a little bit of a stretch goal here. We're going to say if source height equals 2560, then we're going to use the same labels, except that it's going to be labeled 4K. And then the same thing if a source's height is 1440, then we're going to label it 1440p 2K. So I'm going to save that, and if we refresh our page, that should take effect immediately. Hello. And if we take a look down here, it didn't take effect. So this should be 2160 instead of 2560. Also, we're not using else statements here, and that's probably part of the issue too. All right, now let me just clean up this code. We need to close that bracket. So then we're saying else if and else if. Okay, so let's save that, and we'll come back over to the video page. So these were the labels before. Let's refresh so we get those changes. Okay, and you can see I just updated those labels in real time. So now any 4K videos, this is the great part about the new system, is that I didn't have to change that for the individual video in Composr. I just changed the template in PHP. And so now any video that's 4K is automatically going to have that label applied across the entire website. And that does match what I was doing before, right? Yeah, it was 4K with K in lowercase. So now I can just delete that old Video.js stuff, and I can just delete all of that in SQL if I wanted to. I'll probably keep it around for most of them just in case anything ever goes terribly wrong in the future. But yeah, that is working exactly the way that I wanted it to. So I can go ahead and remove from the header bar here, go back to my global HTML wrap. I've got a section that I've marked out here to put site-wide messages in. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now we can go back, and nerdonthestreet.com has been restored to full functionality. That is a little bit slower. I will have to look into the performance. And this is very interesting. What happened here? We've got two that are broken still, and they were working before. Let's take a look inside of phpMyAdmin and see what's going on with those. We refresh this. Okay, I think I know what the problem is. So I had actually deleted the Video.js code from those two posts before I ran that SQL script. So for anything that doesn't use Vimeo, this was perfectly fine because it updated the Vimeo ID to be blank, which is fine because it's not on Vimeo. It doesn't need a Vimeo ID. These two posts here, one of them now has no image and the other one is still using its hard-coded fallback because the Vimeo ID was wiped out when I just made that change. Very easy to fix. Yeah, I know that was done by me manually messing those two up, and so I know that that's not a larger problem that will affect any other videos on the website. For the one that was still using the hard-coded fallback that was showing Vimeo's stripes, I'm going to delete that one. And then here under Vimeo ID, I'll put the ID for my Cosmic video right there. And then for the WireGuard video, I will also paste that one in. All right, well, hey, that was a little bit bumpier than I expected. A little embarrassing that I made some typos when working with SQL there. Once again, I had full backups the entire time, don't worry. But the nerdonthestreet.com website is operational again. Guys, this recording's been going for an hour and a half now, and I hope this video wasn't too dry. I know it was a lot of really specific stuff to my website, probably not stuff you're going to be able to directly transfer over to your own projects. But it can be fun or helpful to watch other people work sometimes on code to see, how they work and how the logic works. And I did want to put this video out. I thought it would be a decent idea to show you that I do a lot of work like this actually behind the scenes periodically to keep nerdonthestreet.com running. Now, in this case, it was cleaning up after some work that I actually hadn't done for a long time, but there have been smaller changes that I've made over time to the website. I notice things that break and I go and fix them, and it is kind of an ongoing effort to keep that website up and running and working properly, and that's just the nature of any highly dynamic, content-filled website. So if you want to support me and help me continue doing things like this, go over to nerdclub.knots.co and consider joining the Nerd Club for just $3 a month. I do want to thank all of our current Nerd Club members for your continued support, and I know this was not a regular tech video, at least not in 2021. For me, not a regular tech video. Like I said, keep an eye out for a network update because I've got some cool announcements coming soon here on the channel. For now, though, that's probably everything you ever wanted to know about my website's inner workings and more. And it's also everything I had to show you today. So I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the Nerd on the Street, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.